3, 10, 100, 200? It's never enough. Looking all around at the masses, at all the people, all the numbers of sick, struggling, possessed, powerless, the victims, people walking, limping, being led or being carried. There were probably more than she wanted to even count. They were all there. The deformed, the demon-possessed, the decrepit, the elderly. She knew there were many, many more too. Many who couldn't make it, who couldn't leave their homes, couldn't leave their beds. So perhaps there was a father or a mother or a brother, a child, a kin, someone among them who came on their behalf, who walked there for another. There also were those who were maybe just curious, some who came who were desperate, some who were hopeful, and of course the cynical. They came too. For wherever there was a word of healing, a word of healings, there were always those the ones who were maybe too sophisticated for all of that, who looked for the gimmick, who looked for the sleight of hand, the stooge, the setup. She wasn't sure what exactly brought her that night to the house where he was. She had heard that Jesus had taught and healed a man in the synagogue. With his words, this man, Jesus, had sent a demon packing. And it must have been quite a sight, because word spread. After all, the man had flailed around, falling to the ground, but that demon sure came out kicking and screaming. So next she heard from some of her neighbors how Jesus had gone to a home and quietly healed a woman who had been sick. Quietly. To her, this indicated that Jesus wasn't just about big productions and dramatic demonstrations. Healings weren't just for show. So she, like so many others, too many others, walked to that home at night. For her, though, it wasn't just curiosity. She was getting old. There were those aches and those pains, and where once she had been pretty strong, she was feeling it. She would come and go. And there were others that would stay these pains. These pains would come and go. Some stayed, kind of like a companion that just never left, even when you wanted them to. At night, while others rested, she would toss and turn. Of course, as often happens, it wasn't just the physical problems. It wasn't just her body that hurt. Her heart carried a different pain. Loss, betrayal, grief. She didn't have much family, just a few friends. Some people who were good to her, while others just ignored her. So she was just one among the many that night. And she knew that there were so many, too many, that would come to see Jesus, follow him, flag him down, fight their way through the sea of sick, seeking to be saved from their condition, seeking to be cured. So she watched as the people yelled or whispered their pleas and their prayers. How could he hear anyone in particular over the din of all of the desperate, all of their prayers, different for different people? How could he hear that? But then she saw him. He would bend down. She could see his mouth move. She couldn't hear what he was saying. But he would reach out and actually touch people, touch the diseased, touch the wounds. Not the wisest thing to do, but he would do it. Lay his hand here. Touch a scarred, outstretched, bleeding, or oozing arm there. And some would fall silent, and some would just slip away. Some would shout, then they'd be replaced over and over and over again with cries, with tears, a touch, a word, over and over and over again. She hoped as the time passed that the crowd would somehow fade away, Maybe enough would get healed. People would give up. Where did all these needy people come from? She recognized some, but again, there were so many. They just became numbers, just became bodies. Eventually, some of what she assumed were Jesus' own friends or family quit just standing around, and they moved him back into the house. And he was gone. He was gone. She stood there. She just stood there. He was gone. And then she turned. And wouldn't you know, that knee, that hip, that familiar pain, it shot right up her spine. It didn't miraculously disappear, just because she had prayed for it. Even though she'd been so close to him, she still ached. It hurt. She knew that some people would be really disappointed. There's always one or more in the crowd, who if their needs aren't met, if they're not cured, if they're not entertained, if they're not touched, well then, hogwash. Then it's just not right. This Jesus to them might be a fraud or a charlatan. And she knew that those stories would spread, that he just didn't do it for them. But so would others. So would other stories. Perhaps she would tell one day someone of what she had seen. Sure, she wasn't cured, but others were. Sure, she hadn't physically felt his touch, but somewhere, somehow, the compassion, the love she witnessed, that touched her. That touched her more deeply. So with her heart somehow warmed, a grief she carried somewhat lightened, she walked. All right, she limped. She limped back home, healed. Amen.